suppose the Third Reich had survived, maybe it had stopped at the point you were talking about where the German lands were reconstituted. Suppose that had happened. If we look at the Soviet Union, Stalin kills more of his people than Hitler had by that point. And I wonder if we have sort of burnished Stalin's reputation a little bit because we had to ally with him in World War II. But then the cycle we see in the Soviet Union is the inherent corruption and inefficiency of the totalitarian system. And then it breaks down, there's reform because people realize how crazy things have been. If the Third Reich had survived, would we see that same cycle there where the system breaks down and would we also remember them the same way as the Soviet Union, where it was so evil, but at some point you just can't sustain that level of craziness forever?
I suspect it'd be worse. Why? Because the Germans are far more efficient than the Russians were in those days. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was, what is it, Nadezhda Mandelstam? She was married to the poet Osip Mandelstam. And she was talking from the prison camps and saying, well, at least it's Russians doing this, because if it were Germans, there'd be no hope. With Russians, there's always a hope because they're inefficient too. And she's Russian talking about it. Hitler he's talking about annihilating entire peoples.
But so was Stalin with killing off the entire classes of Ukrainians.
Yeah, well, his idea is Ukrainians need to pretend they're Russians, and then that's fine if they do that. The question you're asking is, it's not a happy ending, what you're describing. It's a horrendous ending.
What is a scenario in which both Hitler and Stalin could have been defeated in World War II? Is there some system of alliances or counterfactual where that happens?
I think the problem is World War I. World War I has enormous consequences. It is the West, in fact, all sides allowed their generals to make strategy. No one is doing grand strategy in World War I. It's all about operational success. This is what we're all going to do. And then the generals keep sending people, waves and waves of young men up over the trenches. And what do you think is going to happen to them if you send them over the trenches? This is how you get these horrific death rates, hundreds of thousands in a battle. In our own day, it's inconceivable. As a result of that war, not only does it upend Europe by getting rid of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, gets rid of all of those. And so you have massive power vacuum. But it puts two really pernicious ideologies on steroids, fascists and communists. And that's how you get all that evil, is out of a gross mismanagement of World War I. Once they're off and running, you got problems on your hands. And you've got a long solution. So back to your initial question, does grand strategy matter? Yes, it does. Look at World War I when they didn't practice it. And when the civilians, they allowed the officers to make all decisions. Britain is a country that is maritime by geography. Britain built a continental-sized army. That is not Britain's great strength in World War I. And it was the beginning, the victory in World War I, but at horrific cost was the beginning of the end of the British Empire.